Goes live. Hold on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next edition of Sofia Speaks with Latinx Education Collaborative. I am here with a dear friend and colleague of mine, but before we bring her up, I'm just so excited that some of you are joining us in this space. We're on a plethora of different platforms, from Instagram to LinkedIn to Twitter to Facebook. We're there. And welcome to Ask an Educator segment. I'm excited to be in collaboration with the LEC family, and I'm just excited to be in this space. I was a former keynote speaker for one of their conferences last year, Evolucion. I was a former guest on this podcast, and I'm just in community with LEC. So we just thought that it would be the next best thing to collaborate and join forces. The LEC is definitely known for amplifying the voices of teachers in the K through 12 space. And I'm in the Chicagoland area. And listen, I know they got much love for KC, but they have love for teachers across the US, which is another thing that I'm just like so super pumped about. And so listen, the next hour. Please join us. Stay with us. Feel free to comment. We love the interaction. And we really want to shed light on some really important issues that are going on in the realm of education. And it is most definitely my honor and my privilege to introduce to you one of my colleagues that goes by the name of Miss Ritz. We're going to hear from her. We're going to hear her journey. We're going to hear some incredible intel information. Listen, she's a real one, and I'm excited to share her light with you. And so without further ado, we have Miss Ritz, Miss Huerta. Ritz, how are you this afternoon?
Oh my God. I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. This is definitely going to be the highlight of my day. So thank you very much for having me.
Yes, we are so glad to have you. I'm so excited for you because this is such an opportunity. You know, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is really amplifying the stories of teachers that are in the trenches that don't otherwise get an opportunity to share those lived experiences. And I really think that it's important right now to shed light on that, especially as teachers of color, working with students that are incredible and also need their voices amplified as well. So before we jump in, right, and I like spill all the tea, let's hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, your people, your background. Tell us who Miss Ritz is.
Okay, first of all, thank you for talking me up. I feel like I'm like blushing. I'm cheesing so hard. So I'm not very good with compliments, but we'll talk about why. A little bit about me. I'm Chicana, right? My parents were immigrants from Mexico, so I'm first gen educated. I'm from Cicero, Illinois. Let's see. I went to college, obviously. I went to NIU, go Huskies. I know I have some Huskies in the chat right now. So shout out to my pals that are here supporting me. I did graduate from Morton East, so I am an alumni to this district that I work at. And I don't know, I guess that's kind of the foundation. So
Absolutely. And we definitely have to start somewhere. Speaking of foundation, let's pivot a little bit. Talk to us about your journey to the classroom, because obviously, you know, we could choose to be different things for our future, some with more access than others. We'll talk about access in just a little bit. But why education, Ritz? What was something that really helped you to make that choice? And who can we
yeah.
credit for that?
Oh my gosh. When it comes to my journey to education, I was at a crossroads, right? I always knew that I wanted to, go to school, go to college. But to decide what I wanted to do, I was between two paths. And so I wanted to be a nurse and or a teacher. And I don't remember how I came to, those two paths, I guess. But I do remember, falling in love with English, like madly in love with English in my freshman year of high school. Middle school, I was kind of flirting with English, really getting my feet wet in the English realm. I remember, entering little writing contests and doing well. But then came my freshman year, and I had a very particular English teacher. Her name was Delia, and I don't know if she's listening. She might be, but hey, girl. She was I know, right? A Latina educator, English teacher, who not only nurtured my love for English, but also nurtured me as a person. And growing up, I had like a rougher upbringing, right? And so at the time, I didn't know that it's what I needed, but she knew it was what I needed. And as I've stated in, a lot of personal essays and just all these questions that you get asked, you become an educator, like what's your why, and etc. And something that I've always said is she treated me as more than just an ID number. And so the reason why I clearly chose, becoming a teacher was because she nurtured me as an individual and taught me these really powerful messages and lifelong lessons that I carry to this day, not only in my personal life, but into my own teaching, through English, like finding, to me, when I can't find the answers to life from, like parental figures or whatever, I always turn to literature. I truly do. I turn to books, I turn to media, I turn, because somebody somewhere has lived what I've lived, and like they have processed what I'm looking to process. And so I feel as though I can, find it somewhere, and beautifully written. So like, it doesn't have to be nonfiction, like 10 ways to get your life together, or like 10 ways to do that. There's beautiful ways that it's put and interpreted by other people. And so she was definitely one of those people to like guide me in more ways than one. So
didn't she have you guys stand on a table and say, "Oh, Captain, my captain"?
Okay, no.
Come on.
So she didn't make us do that. Her
or
impact
she gave an opportunity?
No, it wasn't that at all. It wasn't directed by her at all. And that's very revealing about her character. Is, students respected her, valued her, and like would follow her to the end of the earth, just because she was passionate about her job and cared so much about her kids, right? So with that being said, after, there was just something special about fifth period, and she knows there's just something so special that one day she walked out of the classroom. This was after we read, she would teach us Frost and Thoreau and, Whitman, Walt Whitman. And one day, in the Dead Poets Society. So one day she steps out of the classroom, and we're all like, let's get on the desks. Like, let's just like, it was between us. It had nothing to do with her directing it. Yeah.
I didn't know.
So it's one of those, learning opportunities or as an educator that you just desire, that you want, where like your message hits the kids in the right places, like strums the right strings on their hearts. And
I love it.
We did that because we felt we wanted to.
Yeah,
exactly. We loved her so much, and the messages really resonated with us. Now, if you ask, my peers from that time, do you remember like the lines? Do you remember this? Do you remember that? They're gonna say no, but I remember Mama Tynes. And to this day, yes, to this day, whenever I like post pictures about her, etc., some of my peers respond, "Oh, I loved her," or "I didn't have her, but my friend did, and she was awesome." And so big motivation, big inspiration, and somebody who I still speak to today when I'm having teacher crises or personal crises. So yeah.
Sure. And I even think we have a picture of you and Tynes.
Oh God.
I think we have one. And we have Delia here in the chat. Hey, hey, Chicago and La Casita, just dropping in to say hello. Thank you, Delia. Delia is so special in that, her and I actually dreamt up this Sofia Speaks. Um,
Okay.
as being part of the LEC community. And so shout out to Delia, who's also from Chicago. Appreciate you coming into this space today. But we do have a picture of you and Miss Tynes. I believe y'all look like you have matching outfits. Let's see if we could pull
Girl,
it up. There we go.
it's a dress in a
Okay.
cardigan. Oh my God.
For those of you who are just tuning in, we are showcasing a picture of Mama Signs and Ritz to put a face to the name. And listen, I even, as a colleague, got to experience Miss Tynes. She was a strong supporter of our school community, and she was a fierce advocate for teachers who got it. And she was an inspiration to me too, and really helped me acclimate, me coming from Chicago into the Morton East community, and all of the different things that I had to go through. And she's just like, G, this is where you belong, and the kids will love you. I love you. I've got you. I mean, she would say this stuff, and I know that that doesn't surprise you, right?
Yes. Yeah, it does not surprise me at all. I mean, she was my freshman year English teacher. Okay. I was essentially on a 10-year journey to become a teacher because I was so like, I have to do it this way. Like it feels right. And in this particular photo, this is my senior year graduation, I believe. If not, maybe it has to be, I'm pretty sure. And so this picture is about 10 years old. Okay, to age myself. But if she was my freshman year English teacher, this just shows her dedication, right? To my senior year, she's the type of person to see you through your education or your goals. She's just like the epitome of support. And I wouldn't be here without her, and I wouldn't be the
Love
teacher
it.
that I am without her.
Love it.
And so, she's always said that she left Morton, but I came in at the right time. And so for her to say that and say that in a way I'm filling her shoes, I'm like, girl, no, I could never. I could absolutely never. But I would love to have worked with her though. That's something but she would never like see the end of me. So I'm glad she left, Like I'm glad she's gone because
There we
I would
go.
be in her room. Yeah. So like Brenda is talking about it in the conversation in the chat. She's talking about how our conversations could go on for hours. When I reached out to her during the pandemic, I was like, I'm losing it. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, blah, blah. She's like, remember that you're talking to humans. Like they're people. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And it's that same like mindset that she, demonstrated to me as a student and that I had to be reminded of for our students and for
And
myself. So,
absolutely. Look, we've
yeah.
got more comments coming in the chat. Please continue to interact with us. We love it. Janet, who was our first Sofia Speaks Special Edition guest, Miss Montalvo, my former student, our colleague and good friend. There's something special about having a Latinx teacher when you're a Latina yourself, which is what I wanted to say. See, she knew where I was going with this, the energy. And that's the power of representation. Okay.
Yes,
That's the
ma'am.
power of mirrors and windows. That is the energy. That is the electricity. That is the promise. And that is the transference of influence when we see someone that looks like us, that represents our cultura, and gives us that unction and that, you know, level of motivation that tells us, man, we could do anything that we put our minds to. We could be in a position of influence. We could be role models for our future students. We could rock the English department, and let's go, right? And I'm just glad that Miss Tynes was that for you. I could definitely testify. Man, we got to amp up, gas up the real ones in our profession, because you know what I'm saying? Love is scarce. And so in this space, we are all about educators. We are all
Yes,
about those
ma'am.
who are in the trenches, boots on the ground, really heart and soul for the kids. We have Gabe here in the chat. delivering mail while listening to this. We appreciate you. Thank you for passing through.
Yes, it is a throwback. It's a throwback indeed, Evelyn. It's only slightly embarrassing, but because I love Tines, I'm put it out there.
So,
I
like,
am, yeah.
speaking of which, passing the torch, I love that. Speaking of which, speaking of, teachers of color, and, really talking about mirrors and windows, let's go a little bit deeper. For those of you who don't know, I mean, obviously you won't till I'm about to drop it, but Ritz and I have a lot of philosophical, profound, and very unfiltered conversations about race, about equity, about justice, about being a teacher of color, in a dominant space that doesn't represent our cultural landscape in terms of the teacher workforce. We talk about some real gritty issues like teacher trauma, which we'll get into shortly. But I really wanted to just go deeper with you in some of these pieces. And it's such a great segue from Tynes, because we definitely need more stories like Tynes, and that transference of love and power and wisdom and being a role model for you and what that did for you. Um, Something else about Ritz before I crack open this whole concept of teacher turnover and how to disrupt the teacher turnover, specifically with teachers of color, is that Ritz herself is a safe place. She has become a safe place for our students. She has become a safe space for me. We can't cry yet, okay?
I'm
And
not
guess
gonna cry.
what?
I'm laughing. I'm a laugh.
Right, because of the last episode,
I got a scarf.
Right. I was wiping my tears with tissue or with some napkins, and I said, "No, I got to go get myself some tissue." But that's indicative of how under-resourced teachers are, um, and I'll definitely shed a little bit of light on how you've been a safe space for me as your colleague, and I'm big sis, right? Um, but listen, let's go deep here. There's a report that came out in 2019 by Teach Plus and by Ed Trust, and it's called "If You Listen, We Will Stay: Why Teachers of Color Leave and How to Disrupt the Teacher Turnover." And I know I asked you to dig a little deep into this report, and I really find it very revealing, right, of what teachers of color are undergoing in the workplace, and how there's such unique strains that we have to circumnavigate. And we definitely have allies. We definitely have made some progress in terms of feeling a little bit more freedom to ebb and flow in our authentic selves. But it goes without saying that we're still facing some challenges. And I think I have, for the visual learner who's tuning in live, I do have a screenshot, a snapshot of the 5 challenges. It's a long report. I definitely recommend that you read it. For those who are listening in, it's called "If You Listen, We Will Stay." If you Google that, you will definitely run into the report. But let's talk about, some of these challenges here. Ritz, uh, how you want to break this down. I mean, we've got some real powerful challenges. This was out of a focus group type dynamic where a lot of teachers of color were brought into a space and this report was generated. But which ones stand out to you?
So actually, now that I'm looking at this like a second or third time, it kind of, the way that I'm viewing it right now, walks you through the first 5 years of being a teacher, because I'm
Sure.
literally at the point of, like, I'm on year 4 and I will be on year 5 next year. And the ones that I truly feel the impact of more so now is 4 and 5. But if I look at, like 1 and 2, that reminds me of my first couple years teaching. It's not that they don't, stand true or as true today in my 4th year going into my 5th year eventually, but the more, like that picture from the graphic is for me from like 4 years ago. So all like bright eyed and bushy tailed pre-pandemic, and so the more you know about this profession, the more you get into the nitty gritty, the more you understand, the districts you're working for, educational policy, etc., the more you get to number 5, which is the bearing the high cost of being a teacher of color. So I don't know if like that resonates with you, or if you can think back
Yeah.
to like how these show up in your career.
Sure.
God, I don't know.
Let's
I don't know
just
where to
read them.
start. I don't know where. Yeah, let's go there.
We can start by reading them because we're teachers, right? So for those of you who are driving and cannot see the visual,
You're
we'll read
absolutely
them
right.
to you. Number 1, they experience an antagonistic work culture that leaves them feeling unwelcome and or invisible. Number 2, they feel undervalued because they take on more than their fair share of responsibility, but are not recognized or compensated for the work that they do. Number 3, they feel that they are deprived of agency and autonomy in their schools because of an inability to tailor their teaching to the population of students they serve. Number 4, they feel they are navigating unfavorable working conditions, which lack the support needed for them to grow as professionals. And last but not least, number 5, they bear the high cost of being a teacher of color, which takes a toll on them financially and psychologically. Whoa,
Well,
that was a
I think
mouthful.
like number 4, let's talk about, the pandemic. I didn't even finish my first full year of teaching in the classroom because we had unfavorable conditions in life in the world. And so then we had unfavorable working conditions during the pandemic. Let's talk about how we had to, come into the workplace while there weren't any students in front of us. Why were we treated as frontline workers?
Mm,
That's it. It's not like we're not human beings either. It's not like we're not afraid to die either, and it's that, to me, that's an unfavorable working condition that's at the forefront, aside from lack of resources or etc., to grow professionally, right? Because if you are worried about surviving first, there's no way that you can worry about enriching your profession, right? And then
absolutely.
I mean, before I move on to number 5, Sophia, would you like to say something about that?
No, sure. I know Janet had jumped in with a comment like, how does, what is the cost, right? How do y'all think it can take a toll financially, bearing the cost of being a teacher of color? I mean, first and foremost, our continued education. Oftentimes, we have to pay out of pocket. And a lot of these grants and scholarships, and I could tell you because for those who know me, I'm very ambitious when it comes to grants, when it comes to scholarships and opportunities, and they're very competitive and they're very hard to get. And so that then can in turn take a toll on us financially to engage this upward mobility that is oftentimes very difficult at the building level. Janet, that's just an example of how it really could take a toll, not just psychologically, but also financially, how so many things have to come out of our pocket if we want to advance. So yeah, like I definitely want to talk about like this idea of agency. Oftentimes we feel like we're not given the agency to move up in leadership positions or to have a real say in what our curriculum looks like and for it to actually be incorporated as just examples, right? These are general examples. Right now, there is such a need for culturally responsive pedagogy, culturally sensitive, culturally aware, culturally astute. Our student population is becoming more and more increasingly diverse. Our curriculum needs to, should, and better match that because we should care that our students are represented in our curriculum. It should matter that they see themselves in the text, in the books, in the things that they read and research. And do we as teachers feel like teachers of color that we have the agency to do that. I would imagine that across classrooms, districts, and cities, that answer would be inconsistent. Thoughts?
So to touch base back on, the notion of, being the high cost of being a teacher of color. I
Mm,
think sometimes, you know amplifying the voices of students of color or under unrepresented communities um, often falls, on our shoulders. And I think that
mm,
that's also heavy too, where, as teachers of color or as teachers of marginalized identities, we often have to be the people who are the voices. And that's frustrating too. That's tiring too. Like,
yes.
obviously, I want to be the voice. I do, because, I am a living, you know, uh, like a mirror to our students, right? I've been in your shoes, literally, because I work at the district, right? I am a
Mm,
Latina, I am a queer person, right? Like, I am all of these things. So my representation matters, but to,
mhm,
have to deliver these messages, this curriculum, find the books for, with Latino authors or with female authors, or with queer stories, like whatever it is, right? That's also a burden, because it
mm.
should be the standard, but it's not. And we know
Come
that.
on.
So it's not only financial, it's psychological, it's emotional at the same time, because you have to face the truth that we are not the standard every day. And then you have to go out of your way to teach it, because it's not the standard. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, you have to make it the standard. And
That's
that's
right.
that's a huge cost. It's a cost on us
It is.
as educators.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to create that collective conversation for our colleagues, for, those who are at the building level and really continue that advocacy work. I love that you're alum. I love that you're Latina. I love that you live in the neighborhood. I love that you teach where you came from. And I feel like, teachers like you and like Janet, that's the reason why I brought you in to the Sofia Speaks podcast edition with LEC, is because I feel like you are definitely the exception and not the norm. But I feel like you're such a representation of what we should normalize, that advocacy, that being a total mirror and window opportunity for your students, and that just loud rally cry of, I am you, you are me, anything is possible should we believe, man. Like, that's just like so dope. And I'm just excited for you to continue that narrative for your students, man. But it goes without saying, we need solutions. So let's talk solutions. Okay. I know on this report there were some solutions, and I just have one more image from this report that has the 5 challenges and then it has 5 solutions. We definitely want to be solution minded. It goes without saying we can continue to identify problems in education and challenges, but where are the solutions? Read those out for us, Miss Ritz, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am. Number one, create culturally affirming school environments. Two, affirm teachers' humanity and racial identity. I would also
Mm,
argue maybe ethnic identity. Empower and invest in teachers. Big on the invest in teachers.
come on.
Build a school-wide family. I have an issue with that wording, but I'll address that in a second. And then
Okay.
have a district priority related to retaining teachers of color.
Mm,
So, like, talking about building a school wide family, I feel like in a lot of workplaces where people say, this is a family, we all were a family. Okay. So, in a way, you can't choose your family, right? And so that means that you essentially have to tolerate them and maybe even love them because you're related. So how do I apply this in the workplace? I feel like it's dangerous. I feel like it's dangerous to say
okay.
build a school-wide family because in how many families do we tolerate unfavorable circumstances or like relationships that do not serve us or hurt us financially, socially, psychologically, emotionally. And so to call a workplace a family, to me, can be problematic today. So maybe I would say, you know, build a school-wide community or, you know, team with the same goal in mind. Do you know what I mean? With similar pedagogy or practices. Like, I think it should be a team, because think about sports teams, right? And obviously I think about like my rugby family, whatever family, right? My rugby team that I went to college and, you know, experienced a team with. Maybe we didn't always get along. Maybe sometimes we just tolerated each other. But when it came down to having like the same goal in mind, we all worked together to try to achieve that. And like by any means necessary. And so I like that wording better, because you don't have to necessarily tolerate each other or tolerate abuse or like negative circumstances, again, like I said. But at the end of the day, if the students are their priority, if the learning is the priority, or if safety is the priority, if we can all work together to, you know, accomplish those things, then, you know, maybe we can set aside differences and things like that. So that's why I have an issue with the word family. Does that make sense?
No, and I definitely feel you on that, and I resonate with you on that, because not everybody that we work elbow to elbow with, this goes in any career, right? Will we share the same ideologies?
Yep.
Will we share the same perspectives? I mean, those perspectives that matter most, right? I mean,
Right.
you can, you know, not like a certain food and I might love it, but that's not going to create a chasm. It's, you know, how you feel about justice and equity that will create a chasm for me, as just an example. And so I definitely feel that. But there definitely needs to be a push for more solidarity. You know, for those listening, Ritz and I are also in the same program. We're both in a graduate program getting our ELL endorsement with Dominican. Shout out to Dominican cohort. And those who are continuing on in their studies. And Ritz and I are becoming some spokespersons on the multilingual learner front, on the ELL. We like to say multilingual learners, that asset framework versus a deficit mindset. And, you know, we're really just starting to see just some of the disparities that our multilingual learners are going through and have experienced, not just at the building level, but across the US, according to our research. And, you know, these are just some pieces that we are really pushing for at the building level. We got to admit, we're little firecrackers, okay? You know, we spark off, we pop off, but we mean well. We definitely
It's
mean
called
well.
passion. It's called passion. Okay.
It's called passion. And listen, we are strong advocates for our kids and within our community. Don't play with us. Don't play with language learning. Don't play with rigor with us. Here is my sister-in-law, Eunice, CPS teacher here. Thanks for having these conversations. So important. She will actually be featured next month. I'm featuring Chicago Public School teachers. And you know I got to highlight my sis in love, who is doing some incredible things, dual language, ELL support. She is definitely a firecracker, a justice advocate, someone to reckon with. See, I just love to gas up on my people. That's just the thing. Like, y'all can't stop me. I'm such a fangirl. But anyways, going back to the advocacy, Ritz and I, we always be ping ponging. We be talking to folks in the building, and they're probably like, "Oh, here these two come. What next? What
Honestly,
else?"
I feel like they hate seeing us together. They know we're gonna say something.
Mira, para que tú lo sepas, you're welcome. God bless. Okay.
There's just so much to us.
There's just so much
to us.
You're welcome. Okay. But with that, right? I mean, obviously, Latinx educators are leaving the profession, teachers of color in droves. And I know that that pandemic has really exacerbated the situation. But I really want to pivot to the ever pressing topic. And Ritz, let me tell you something. And I don't know if I've told you this candidly, but I really feel like it's one of the topics within the world of education that I feel very responsible for advocating for amplifying, and for really cracking open this this Pandora's box, if I can articulate my thoughts, because I'm starting to get really worked up with passion here. And that's teacher trauma. Um, you know, it is really, really important for us to continue to push to the forefront this idea of teacher trauma. There are so many layers to this. We don't have enough time. We are definitely just going to like tap around it, dance around it. But I really want to talk a little bit about it. There was an article that I read. It's called PTSD in Teachers is Real and Serious. This is a layer of teacher trauma, one that I've been diagnosed with since 2012. Here's what you need to know. And there are two types of trauma that this article highlights: a firsthand trauma, right? And it says the following: unfortunately, teachers experience traumatic events at school. Let's be reminded, audience: school shootings or threats. Let me not oof, right? Like my
Yeah.
stomach's starting to shake. Violent students, aggressive parents, bullying, administration, death of a student or faculty member. We could put a pin in that right there for us, right? A toxic work environment are just a few situations that may lead to PTSD in teachers. Then there's secondary trauma. You can also develop PTSD about hearing about the trauma of what someone else has endured. Teachers care so much about the well being of our students, which makes us very likely to suffer from secondary trauma after hearing a student share their details of abuse, death of a parent, devastating house fire, etc. We had students that lost their parents to COVID at the height of the pandemic. I had a kid that lost his father to COVID. And I didn't find out except through his counselor, because he was just so grief stricken and still attended my class anyways. And so let's let's talk about this, man. This is problematic. And if we want to retain good teachers, good quality teachers, man, that love our kids, that love our nation's kids, that care about engaging our students, that understand that this profession is and can be transformative. Um, what can you say to trauma, teacher trauma, and PTSD?
Well, I think, if we touch base back to, I mean, you describing me as a safe person, my students describing me as a safe person, and just being somebody who may be perceived as having all the answers. I think secondhand trauma is very most likely to happen to most teachers versus like firsthand trauma, right?
Sure.
Though the increase in mass shootings in school settings is also something that lingers over any teacher's, brain, So when it comes to secondary trauma, when you provide educational opportunities or even just like SEL, they call it, right? Social emotional learning opportunities for students where they can be vulnerable, where you're encouraging it. Students will share things that have happened to them. And it's beautiful to know that they trust you. It's beautiful to know that you care. That you care enough not only to ask, but to actually read it. Some students will always ask me every year, "Are you actually going to read this? Who is going to look at this?" And
Mm,
I'm like, me. I don't just give this to you as busy work. Like, I care about your day. I care about this activity regarding your goals, or etc. And they reveal some really heavy things.
mm,
And a lot of the times I carry that with me. And I carry that with me every time I see their sweet faces.
mm,
And, it's a big responsibility. It feels almost wrong when they share things with you that, especially where you have to, file a report, let their social worker know, get them all the support that they need, it feels almost wrong because they trusted you, not a social worker, not a counselor, not somebody that they don't already have a relationship with. But as I was having this conversation with another first-year teacher, asked you, what should I do? Like, this student revealed this to me, etc. I mean, it's about getting the support that the students need, right? And I don't have the credentials. I have the heart. I don't have the credentials to help you. I have the heart to support you. So it's difficult and it's hard, and I want to spend all my money and I want to give them all my time and attention, but in a way, I wonder how that could turn into firsthand trauma,
Absolutely.
Where it's just the constant, and it can be triggering for myself too, as somebody who, struggles with things like PTSD or CPTSD. It can trigger my own things, my own issues. And so some days I have to really, those coping mechanisms, meditation, exercising, breathing, like, I have to do it all. And sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes I shut down, and that's because I care. And so it's difficult and beautiful to have such deep relationships with people when, you can't always be the person that helps them, saves them, etc.
Right.
But I wouldn't trade it. I love them. So
I know
that yeah. I'm sure you can speak to firsthand trauma, Sophia.
Sure.
And how that affects you.
Yeah. Turning to the teacher, turning to us, right? What happens, like you're saying, like you're tossing me the ball here, what happens when we experience this firsthand trauma? Where are the best practices and the resources for good teachers who are experiencing traumatic events, both firsthand and vicariously? So that's like where I really want to dig my heels. And as I was doing some policy work in DC this summer and really looking at diversifying the teacher workforce and writing policy memos and things of that nature, one of my recommendations was mental health support for teachers who sign on to very tough teaching assignments and need that support, and need it right away. And I'll tell the audience, Ritz and I, have experienced some real firsthand traumatic events together. I'll go back, was it last school year? No, it might have been 2 school years ago after school, where I ran into your classroom and I had gotten word that a former student of mine was murdered. It was a vehicle type murder, of a vehicular murder, if I could say that word correctly. And I remember just losing all of my senses, and you really just working me through like my pain and my tears and my frustration of losing students violently. And then this school year, it happened again.
It made me cry.
Where I just got to let the audience know, these are ways in which we cope, people, with our trauma, by leaning into each other and by becoming that safe space for each other. When we lost our student this past school year, just in November after Thanksgiving break, you had to drive me home. I was incoherent. I was gone. I was completely gone. And, those are experiences that I don't know if the general public oftentimes is exposed to, and how when our students pass, and when they pass violently, how do we work through these traumas? And then I had the great idea of taking you to the funeral, right? And so
you didn't take me. You didn't take me. You asked me, right? Or I don't know
Well,
if you asked me per se, but you said I'm gonna go, and then I said like I can come with you.
I
It
meant
felt like an
take you because you were in
experience
my
together.
car.
Oh,
Right.
I thought you meant like take me hostage. I was like, no, you didn't.
No, no, no. Yes. So it definitely was an experience. And so there we were, two teachers in a student funeral, comforting our students, hugging as many as we could. We're not crying, you're crying. And this is real. This just happened. This was our current school year. This was just, we can argue, a few weeks ago. And our student was taken violently by gunfire. And it's these experiences that I feel like, and by the way, I couldn't have gotten through it without you. So mad love to you, Miss Ritz, for keeping a soldier like me in the trenches just another day. Because that was enough for me to be like, I need a leave of absence. I need something. I need to go away. And I've got some systems in place. I've got some, really concentrated therapy that's underway, and I have my best practices of meditation, journaling, prayer, faith, and talking about it, right? And I think that we need to continue to talk about it, that teachers do experience trauma. I don't know if those of you who are still listening to us in the chat, what kind of trauma have you experienced? And we want to honor you in this moment, right? It's like also about honoring each other. It's like, something that I find just extremely important. And this is something that we need to continue to talk about at the building level, at the state, and even the federal level. It's these types of lived experiences, Ritz, that I feel should get in powerful seats, that I feel should inform and impact policy, that I feel like should get in the room of spaces and places where procedures, policy, and all of these structures that would govern our school system should be communicated, because this is what it's about. It's not just about curriculum, assessments, and best practices. What are the teachers and the students and the staff actually going through? And who's going to be bold enough to really tell these audacious stories of pain, of loss, of suffering, but also of beauty, of resilience, and overcoming? That's teaching and learning. It's messy, it's gritty, it's amazing, it's preposterous, it's confusing, it's clear, it makes sense. It's a dichotomy of things. And I want to tell those stories wherever we go, right? I don't know if you have one last stop before I take us out of a very profound place that I took us in.
Well, I think one of the defining factors of trauma is not talking about it. Something can become traumatic when you do not discuss it. And so even simple things like weapons being found in a school, if nothing is said afterwards, then we feel left in the dark, right? We feel scared. We feel, just lost. We're like, well, we need guidance too, right? And so talking about the pain and the suffering that comes with, our job, because it's so connected to other people, it's so humane that if we don't talk about it, we're just gonna, get angrier, more resentful. We're gonna lose that touch of empathy that makes us great educators, because we're numbing ourselves to the we don't want to feel pain, so then we end up feeling nothing, right? So it's important to talk about it because it makes it real, it makes it true. And I love that you're getting passionate about it. So please don't dim your light. The world's already trying to do that to you. So, be on your team, because I'm on your team. And with that being said, let's talk about it. Here we are. So
And obviously we've just got about 10 minutes left, and I know we could stay here. Ritz and I talk about this in our spare time.
I know, I know.
Man, we really just chop it up because it's important to us, and it's meaningful work what we do, and we need each other. And so that's just one solution, right, to this ever present help of retaining good teachers in the midst of firsthand secondary trauma. Man, just leaning into each other, building that community of like-mindeds, and standing in solidarity with each other and allowing each other to share those stories. That's half the battle, and that will initiate some healing. So speaking of healing and really just turning a corner, thank you for walking through something that you know is very personal to me, and I know is very personal to you. But let's get just a little bit lighthearted here. I want to engage you with what I call fireside chat. Okay, it's an
Okay.
activity. It's an activity because you know we teachers and we like the
We
activities.
love. Bring it on.
So it's literally like this or that. And you can't
Okay.
think about it. You just have to pick one or the other item that I'm gonna like ramble off. And there's not
Why
too
would you do
many.
this?
I kind of forewarned you without giving it away, pero this
No, but
is
I'm like the most indecisive person. I can't explain myself. I
no,
can't
you can't
nothing. No,
explain. No,
I have to
no.
decide. Okay. All
Maybe
right.
you could explain a little bit, but not a lot, because I got another one that's lined up. Okay.
Okay.
Which would
Okay.
you prefer? Which would you lean into? Here's the first
Wait,
one.
one question. Am I allowed to
Clarifying
do
question.
any back? Like, can I do one back at you at the end?
Ooh, okay.
Just at the
Deal.
end, just one. Just one. Okay,
Deal,
cool.
deal,
Go,
deal,
go, go.
deal.
All right.
Cool, cool,
All right.
cool, cool. All right. Here we go. First
Okay.
one. Tamales or taquitos? Fireside. It's
Tacos.
gotta be kind of quick. Taco.
Tacos. Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah, man. Okay. You know I'm Mexican, okay? So don't be hurting my feelings, but I'm just saying, and I'm just kidding. Mexican rice or arroz con gandules?
Arroz con gandules, for sure.
Hey,
Mhm.
hey, hey,
I love it. I love it. If I see it at Mexican parties, like next to the orange rice, I'm doing con gandules because it's good.
I still owe you and Janet a pot of arroz con gandules in one of our study sessions. I mean it. It's coming up. I think we got it in the books.
Write it down. Write it down. I'm writing it down right now. She owes us.
Okay. Yes. Tres leches or flan?
Flan. I don't like tres leches.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Fair enough.
Cancel
Fair
my
enough.
Mexican card. It's fine. I love flan. Flan's good.
Hey, they're gonna be like, wow, Ritz, for real. Okay. Chicago Bulls or Bears?
Bears. I don't care for either, to be quite frank. I'm looking forward to the rugby team that Chicago creates. So
I got
we'll
you.
see.
I got you because
We'll
you're
see.
rugby inspired. I'd
Yes.
be Bulls
Yes.
Nation, but it's not my fireside chat. Okay. Um, you're like, I
It
can't even
is
deal with
kind of.
you. Right. Okay. This is gonna get a little bit more, complicated, but not too much.
Okay.
Peace or justice?
Justice always, forever.
Come on, because guess what? Justice will generate the peace.
It's like
Oh, and
ask me Martin or Malcolm. I'm gonna say Malcolm. So let me just
I know you
put
will.
that out there.
I know you will. Because I remember one time you're
So
like, oh, you know all the MLK quotes, but do you know any of Malcolm quotes? I'll never forget you told me that. I'm like, look at this girl. Anyways, here we go. Teacher continued education grant or teacher travel grant?
ooh, travel. Because
Yes.
traveling is a continued education. What you mean?
Right. And it adds that whole experience and the journey onto it. I'm with you on that.
Yes,
Legit.
yes,
All the
yes.
way. Y'all can keep your master's program. Y'all can keep your advancement courses. We're gonna go and
You
we're
know what
going
though? You say that now because you're literally doing both. You're literally traveling and in a master's program. Right now, I'm in a master's program with you, so I would love to do the traveling part. So if you
I
want to,
got you.
put me in a little suitcase, that'd be great.
Right. I got you. And I know where to send you if you're interested. Okay.
Ooh.
And then here's one that ends up pretty lighthearted. Okay. So free coffee or free bagels for a school year?
Bagels, just because we get coffee already, and I like good coffee. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. We already get like free coffee sometimes, and I would like to be in charge of what I drink. So bagels, I'll do bagels from anywhere. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Cool. So
Okay,
that's
my
all I
turn.
have for my
My
fireside
turn.
chat.
Can I do one? Can I do one for
Okay.
you?
You can do one or two.
Okay, pick your like your personal teacher hell, okay? But it's this or that, okay?
Okay.
Okay. The copiers don't work at work, or you forgot your ID. Which one is worse?
ID for sure, because I can't get into the building without my ID. And I can't even make copies without my ID. And by the way, I rarely make copies because I go digital, save the trees, let's go green, baby. Next question.
But the paper's already cut up and it's upstairs. Like the trees are dead, girl. The trees are long gone. Okay. The trees are not our responsibility right now.
I don't even want to make copies.
That's all I had prepared in my mind when you brought this up. So I don't have any other ones. So that's me.
I love it. I love it. All right. This is my last question here. And then I have to fill in the blanks. What keeps you going?
Okay. Oh my God. Spite keeps me going for sure. So being who I am is radical enough to keep me going. My friends and family who are supporting me here, and the simple things in life, like a baby's laughter. I know that sounds silly, but if you really look at the simple things, that's what makes life cool. Like nature, okay, laughter, moments that seem inconspicuous. Those are the kinds of things that really keep me going and looking forward to life. And obviously keeping the memory of my mom alive. I think that's definitely the last thing, because me being here is proof that she was here too. So there's that.
I love it. Tribute to mom.
Yeah, always, forever.
Fill in the blanks for us.
Okay.
What teachers need right now is
money, therapy, respect.
Woo! In that order, maybe.
I don't know. Yes.
And respect. I love that. Let's normalize therapy. I believe it's becoming more normal.
Jael's actually one of my students. So I support her her influencer journey. Yes, and she's supporting my endeavors. Love you, Jael.
I love it. It's good to see you, Jael. And Ramos was
Times.
We got Mama Times in the house. Let's go. She just popped in the chat for those who are listening, driving. I know a few of our friends and family members were saying they're going to drive. We love you, Miss Times. You will catch the recording where we chatted you up and talked you up. You are so loved all the way from Chicago to Arizona. Man, we still love you and love you all the way. Last but not least, fill in this last blank, and then I'm going to cut you loose.
Okay.
I want my students to leave my classroom
understanding that learning matters. You always have a choice, and to lead life with love.
Love it.
Yeah.
Leading life with love. I love it. Man, Miss Ritz, It has been an honor. It has been a privilege, and it has been a lot of fun to hear your story, to hear your journey, to be willing to do this crazy thing with me. And I am excited for your future. I am excited to see what the future holds for you. Your kids are lucky to have you. And I know that you are blessed to have your students that are on your roster every year. You keep going onward. We love you. We're about you. And you are important to this work. Vanessa, coming in. I feel all the love and fierce advocacy. Aplausos to you both. Thank you, my love. Yours.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for having me and being a mentor to me, and for using your voice and your platform and any privilege that you get to also uplift other Latinos. So love to you.
I love it. I feel the love. I'm going to put it in my pocket and take it home with me. I love you, girl. I'll see you soon.
Love you back.
So listen, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining Sofia Speaks special edition with Latinx Education Collaborative. Now for a second with Sofia Speaks. I thought that I would end with a little bit of poetry, feeling like it's fitting because you just heard a conversation between two English teachers and lovers of language. So here it is. To teach is to preach out loud, putting up proud the volume of justice. To teach is to impact generations with no alleviation, a stretch of our imaginations, cut right to the heart where it almost splits, yet all the while knowing it's worth it, que vale la pena. To teach is to spill forth knowledge, wrestle with young minds, drawing a silhouette over their quintessential figures in hopes to trigger revelation, diffusing trepidation from the trauma of their past. To teach is to remember the whole child, how each one will come ripe with potential. And our goal, though not limited to, is to water it with a hose and watch it grow like the rose that grew from concrete. To teach is to envelop one of the most sacred roles, how deep the roots and stems go down into earth's soil. My soul flex does recoil at its labor. We ain't heroes, but humans. Our human conditions steady brewing. Yet this I do know, to teach is to change the world, for its influence will eternally flow and flow and flow. So to all my educators, EDU justice warriors, and audience members alike, I see you, I feel you, and I am with you. Until next time, amor y paz.